Have you ever noticed that the more you try to stop thinking about something, the louder it becomes? A conversation from 3 days ago, a decision you haven't made, a message that hasn't been answered, something embarrassing you said years ago. Your mind takes one small uncertainty and turns it into 10 questions. What if I made the wrong choice? What if they misunderstood me? What if something goes wrong? And before you realize it, you're not solving a problem anymore. You're trapped inside one. But here's what most people misunderstand about overthinking. You don't overthink because you're weak, and you don't necessarily overthink because you have too many problems. You overthink because your brain is trying to create certainty where certainty doesn't exist. Once you understand that, you can begin to break the cycle. Think about the last time someone replied to you differently than usual. Maybe their message was shorter. Nothing has actually happened. You have very little information, but your brain hates that empty space, so it fills it. Maybe they're upset with me. Maybe I said something wrong. Maybe they're losing interest. Maybe I should send another message. Now notice what happened. A fact became a possibility. The possibility became a story. And the story started producing real emotion. This is one of the most important things to understand about overthinking. Your mind can react emotionally to a story it created itself. And that's why telling yourself, just stop thinking about it, rarely works. You're fighting the thought instead of questioning the story underneath it. So the first thing you need to learn is simple. Separate what you know from what you're imagining. Ask yourself, what do I actually know right now? Not what do I fear? Not what might happen? Not what does this remind me of? What do I actually know? Maybe the answer is simply, they haven't replied yet. That's the fact. Everything after that may be interpretation. This distinction sounds small, but it creates distance between reality and the story your mind is building around reality. And that distance matters. Because overthinking feeds on possibilities. There is always another possibility. You can analyze a decision for an hour and still invent one more reason it might go wrong. That's why some intelligent people become especially trapped in overthinking. A mind that is good at finding possibilities can also become very good at finding reasons to worry. Intelligence doesn't automatically create peace. Sometimes it simply gives fear a better vocabulary. So instead of asking, have I thought about this enough? Ask a better question. Is there an action I can take right now? If yes, take the smallest useful action. Send the email. Make the appointment. Write the first paragraph. Ask the question. Make the decision. But if there is genuinely nothing you can do right now, more thinking is probably not preparation. It's repetition. And repetition can feel productive because your mind is busy. But being mentally busy and making progress are not the same thing. There's another trap here. Many people believe they need to feel certain before they act. They tell themselves, I'll decide when I'm completely sure. I'll speak when I know exactly what to say. I'll begin when I know it will work. But complete certainty almost never arrives. So they think more, then more, then more. And eventually thinking becomes a substitute for living. The way out is not to become certain. It's to become more comfortable acting without certainty. Try this question. What would I do if I accepted that I cannot know everything in advance? Suddenly your brain has a different job. Instead of predicting every possible future, it has to identify the next reasonable step. And that's much easier. There's also a physical side to this that people often ignore. Have you noticed how much worse your thoughts can feel late at night? The problem hasn't necessarily changed. Your state has. You're tired. You're alone with your thoughts. There are fewer distractions. And something manageable at 2 in the afternoon can suddenly feel enormous at 2 in the morning. So create a rule for yourself. Don't make permanent conclusions during temporary emotional states. You don't need to solve your relationship at midnight. You don't need to decide your entire future while exhausted. You don't need to believe every thought simply because it arrived with a strong emotion. Sometimes the most intelligent response to a thought is, I'll look at this again tomorrow, and then actually stop feeding it. Now, there's one more question that can interrupt an overthinking spiral surprisingly quickly. Ask yourself, am I solving this, or am I rehearsing pain? Because those are very different things. Problem solving moves toward an answer. Overthinking often moves in circles. Problem solving asks, what can I do? Overthinking asks, what if? Problem solving eventually ends. Overthinking keeps demanding one more thought. Learn to recognize the difference. The goal isn't to never think deeply again. Deep thinking is valuable. Reflection is valuable. Planning is valuable. The problem begins when thinking stops serving you and starts controlling you. So when your mind begins racing, don't try to defeat every thought. Come back to three things. What do I know? What can I do? And what must I accept that I cannot control? Those three questions can bring you back from an imaginary future into the life that's actually happening. Because maybe peace doesn't come from finally answering every question. Maybe peace begins when you realize that some questions don't need an answer tonight. Some people won't explain themselves. Some decisions will involve risk. Some situations will remain uncertain. And you can still be okay. Your mind doesn't need complete control over tomorrow. It needs enough trust to handle tomorrow when it arrives. So the next time you catch yourself replaying, predicting, analyzing, and imagining the worst, remember, you don't have to follow every thought to the end. Sometimes you can notice it, question it, and let it pass. Your thoughts are information. They are not instructions. And the moment you understand that, your mind becomes a place you can observe instead of a place you have to obey. If this helped you see your thoughts differently, subscribe to Vera Mind. And tell me in the comments, what does your mind overthink the most? The past, other people, or the future?